From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
Hi there, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast.
For 15 years now, we've been proudly helping breeders promote hundreds of thousands of pedigree livestock with our easy-to-use animal management-driven website software.
And let's not forget about Hired Hand Live, where over $1 million worth of livestock is sold online each year.
We're excited to bring you market trends, sales data, advice from your fellow breeders, and stories from the ranch.
Our software makes managing your website and your animals a breeze, so you can focus on what you love.
So let us handle your digital chores while you tune in to another episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. Welcome to this episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. Today we're visiting the beautiful pastures of Windmill Ridge Ranch in Morgan, Texas, home to a growing herd of registered Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, Molly Clubb, and I'm excited to take you on another journey into the world of Texas Longhorns and the breeders who care for them with today's guest, Brandon Thomas. Well, thank you both for joining me today. Why don't you start just by telling us a little bit about your ranch name, and where you're located?
Yeah, so we're located about an hour south of Fort Worth in Bosque County. It's considered kind of the top of the hill country. We have about 30 head of cattle here on the rolling native prairie that we have. We also have a very dense cedar thicket on part of our property. It's a really nice place. It gives us the ability to be close enough to the city to enjoy the benefits of Fort Worth and everything it has to offer, but also gives us a peace and quiet of a ranch that feels like it's pretty far away from anything. Our ranch name is Windmill Ridge Ranch. Part of our ranch has a lot of ridges on it. We actually overlook the lake. And so we also love windmills. And so when you put two of those together, we came up with Windmill Ridge Ranch. And up until recently, we actually had a windmill on top of the ridge that you could see from Lake Whitney. Unfortunately, a storm came through and rendered it not able to be used anymore. And so we've taken it down, and we're actually in the process of restoring it to put it back up at a later date.
So tell me a little bit about what that process is like. Did you have to find like a specialist or something? Or are you guys doing it on your own?
So windmills are something that the family has loved. My mom has loved windmills her whole life, from a ranch in Lampasas, growing up in Lubbock. It's just always been a part of the life. And so windmills have always been a thing that we've enjoyed. We got the first one when we decided to name the ranch Windmill Ridge Ranch. It's actually a windmill from 1939 that was built in Fort Worth, Texas by Axtell Windmill Company. There's only 2 windmill companies that were original to the state of Texas, San Antonio Machine and Axtell. And Axtells were in Fort Worth, and so it's pretty cool that we were able to find it. They're very rare and hard to find. And that kind of started us down a path of windmills. So I actually rebuild and restore antique windmills. Right now we have 15 projects of windmills going on right now on the ranch that range from, some of them are ready to go up. Others are ready to go into the barn and shop to get a full rebuild and a full restoration. The most recent one I completed is a one from the 1920s. And then the next one that I'll probably start this year is a very large windmill that is from the early 1900s. I don't know the exact date, but it is actually, it's an open gear. And it is a 16-foot fan diameter. So the fan on itself is 16 feet tall on a 30-foot tower.
That's really cool. That's so interesting and such a neat piece of history.
It is. We really enjoy them, and they're fun to we're really looking forward to getting more of them up around the ranch to be able to use as backdrops for pictures, but also just showcase. All of ours are old. I think the newest windmill we have on the ranch is from the 1950s. And we have them dating back all the way to 1907.
Wow. What's the oldest one you've ever had the pleasure of working on?
It'd probably be the 1907 right now. I have a windmill that was patented in the 1890s, but I don't think it was built in the 1890s. I think it was built later into the 1910s, 1915s maybe. But because they weren't dated back then. Some of them, they never thought, I guess, they'd make them this long or survive this long. But it's a very interesting process to rebuild them and restore them. They are such a symbol of the West, of Texas, of ranches. And so it's really cool to have the opportunity to work on them for ourselves, but also for other people, trying to make their dreams to have a windmill in their place a reality, or fixing the one that's been in the family for 100 years on the ranch that is got taken out by a storm or something. So it's fun to be able to work on them and make those dreams come true for people.
Well, speaking of symbols of the West, when did the Longhorns come into play on the ranch?
So the Longhorns came into play about 7 years ago. When we bought a ranch, we bought it in two parts. The first part we bought was a cedar thicket. It was great for hunting, but there was absolutely no way you could put a cow on it. There's no grass on half of it. It's just cedar thicket and rolling hills. Then when we got the second half of the ranch, it was all native pasture land that was rolling hills. At which point we decided, for like so many people, the ag exemption, we got to do something. Most of my relatives and most of Candice's relatives have all run commercial cattle their whole lives, made a living at it. And so we had the background to be able to ask, family, different breeds, different cattle, all of that. But we always kind of came back to the Longhorns, came back to them for the hardiness, their, ability to withstand so many different varieties, the ease of calving, but also, it was kind of the thought, if we were going to have the headache of cows, let's make it something we enjoy, something that's unique with the personality. And every cow is a different color, it has a different horn shape, it has a different personality. And that's kind of what makes it fun. You can go in the pasture and exactly by looking at it what it is. And they're personable to you in a way of, you have a name for it, and instead of the name being number 382, this is Tabby, or this is Tabitha, or this is Drag Strip. And, that really kind of set us down that direction. And most of my relatives all love them too, even though they never would want to own it. They love coming to the ranch. They love looking at the Longhorns, and they love working them with us every spring and fall. And I think that's true for so many people. Just coming to look at them, take pictures, stand at our gate. Can't tell you how many people just stand at our gate and take pictures of our cows. Met some great people and heard some great stories from that. So that's kind of just a fun side of it that we enjoy.
Well, I want to ask some more questions about your gate visitors in a minute, but I have a question for Candice first. So I have a feeling I might know the answer to this, but a lot of times when you come from a family that's raised commercial cattle and you tell them you're going to get Longhorns, they're like, what's the deal? Did you get any grief for that decision?
I wouldn't say too much. I think my family was supportive of it, especially because Longhorns are so iconic here in Texas. Everybody's excited and they really love to hear the Longhorn stories.
Well, tell me about the funniest gate visitor story you can share with us on air.
It's ranged. We've had people stopping with their kids just to try to take pictures. And, if we're here and we're able to catch them, we really appreciate that they stay outside of the gate. That's what but if we're here and they're trying to take pictures in the spring with the bluebonnets and the Longhorns when they're up front, we'll bring them in, and, we've been able to make kids photos that way for their families, and that's been good. A funny story is one day we had a gentleman stop And he had a Longhorn necklace on. He was Longhorned out. Turns out it was Rick from the TOBAA, actually doesn't live too far and drives past our place every day. But at the time, I had no idea. And I was just thinking, man, who is this guy that knows so much about Longhorns, dressed up in Longhorn gear head to toe? And he's out here, taking pictures and enjoying the cows. And I think that's probably the funniest ones. And then we've had, the more meaningful stories of people coming by that they were driving past to get out for the day because they were going through cancer treatment or something. And they saw the cows and go, I just want to stop and take a picture. And so that's really a beneficial thing for everything.
So with Rick stopping by for a visit, did any of the pictures he took of your cattle happen to wind up in the Trails magazine or not yet? Maybe next wildflower season?
No, I don't think any of them made it. But he'll stop by if he sees us out there. We'll stop and talk. He always tells me if I ever need anything from him, he'll stop and check for the cows for us. He says he always waves at them when they're up in the front pasture up along the highway. So I don't think any have made it yet, but hopefully, fingers crossed, one will make it soon.
Well, let's talk a little bit specifically about how you got started with the Longhorn. So you decided that's what you wanted on the ranch. Tell me a little bit about, how you found those first ones you bought, what the decisions that went into making it, how many you started with.
So, it started with Candice and I used to live in San Antonio. And so when when the family bought the property up here, we were like, okay, now we got to find cows. Outside of San Antonio is Len and Josie, Streethoff Ranch. And, Googling who's got Longhorns and started to come across and always came across their website. So I called them up and said, hey, we're new to this. We actually live not that far from your ranch and we'd like to come by and see it. And, so it started with going and spending some time with Len and Josie, touring the herd, talking cows, looking at the tractor collection, just, kind of building that friendship that they're known for and, answering, I don't know, how many millions of questions that we had and, ooh, we like that cow. How much is that cow? And they'd tell us and we're like, okay, ooh, that's not what we want. But, that's how it started. And we went there a handful of times, visited with them. And ultimately we bought our first two cows from them. One of which is actually still on the ranch today. And is one of our best cows that we have. So, we got started, visiting with Len and Josie. And then, after that, at that time, there was a sale called the Blue Ridge sale. It was happening outside Atlanta. And we spent a lot of time going to the Blue Ridge sale for the first couple years and buying cows, some of which we still have. The first cow we bought at an auction that we still own is one of my favorite personal cows named Drag Strip, and she's fantastic, one of the best producers we have. But, she got separated in the pens because she wouldn't stop fighting with other cows and all of this stuff. And for some reason I said, this is going to be a good animal to get. And she's a fantastic mother. And to this day, we have a mutual understanding of don't do something crazy and you can stay here. And it's worked out great for us. But we started, and I think we started like so many, you get auction fever. And I think we walked away from the first Blue Ridge sale with 5 or 6 cows. At that point we ended up with 8. I think we had 8 cows and we were pretty excited to have 8 cows. And then we've had the first crop of babies. And at that time we didn't have a bull, and AI was just, it was a thing, but it wasn't as prolific as it is today. And so then we're going, oh no, now we got to find a bull to rebreed our stuff. And that's when luckily the Mullinaxes, were able to lease us a bull. And that kind of got us our next calf crop. And then we ended up kind of going back to the Blue Ridge sale another year, and we bought Candice's favorite cow, named Tabby, or Tabitha. And then when we bought her, she had a calf aside that's named Tabby. And they are the pets of the ranch. If you follow our Instagram, they've got birthday party hats on. They've got Christmas outfits. They're the ones that everyone takes pictures with. They're the ones that everybody pets. And then, so at one point we grew to 40 something animals. And so at one point we had 40 animals here on the ranch, and it was great. And then I think we ended up where so many people end up, especially newcomers, as you start going, oh no, I've got too many. And then you start realizing that maybe less is more. And so we started to bring it back down to what our ranch could support, what the grass could support, what we could support. Because like so many, we don't run Longhorns full time. We have to have a job that pays for the Longhorns. And so, we shrunk it back down to some of our favorite, best, most consistent producers we have. And that's kind of where we sit today. We're sitting right around the mid-20s for cows and calves and everything. And that's where we found our happiness. We're able to balance the cows. We're able to balance life, work, and we're not having to feed them every single day because the land can actually support that amount of cows right now.
Well, it sounds like from your journey, a couple things. You were really lucky to get started with some great breeders between the Mullinaxes and the Strudoffs. I'm sure that kind of helped with especially with the Strudoffs, it probably helped with the learning curve of here's how you take care of them, here's the vaccinations, all those sorts of things. The Blue Ridge sale, a lot of folks, I think, are disappointed that one of those good, those really good ranch sales went away. Candice, I don't know if you remember, or the years you were there, they had the chuck wagon and the open bar under the tent, and sometimes the buffalo would roam up, or, that sort of stuff. So just an all-around great sale, too, I feel like.
It was, I think there's a story. The Blue Ridge sale always had a story, whether it was the weather, whether it was this. One of the stories that my mom and my sister will still tell this day is they went to the bathroom in the porta-johns, and it was one of the really bad storms, and it moved the porta-john on them as they were inside of it. And so it was always a great sale that so many people attended, and I loved it. It had a certain feel to it. It was just kind of brought back like an old ranch sale. It was produced really well, and the animals at the time, might not have brought the best, but most of the time they were very good quality animals that you could start your program with. And so many, looking back 7 or 8 years, so many people got started with their animals from the Blue Ridge sale. So.
Yeah, I definitely remember the bad weather years, because I think one of those times it was maybe like only our second or third time of doing Hired Hand Live there, and we thought, one, we were going to blow away, and two, how are we going to keep all this equipment dry, because it's coming in like sideways from the tent, I felt like. So definitely have those same memories. I guess not quite as bad as being in a porta-john, but well, tell me a little bit about some of your favorite bloodlines and, where you're at today in terms of your breeding strategy and your goals.
Yeah. So, starting out, we had a drag iron. I think when you look up a Texas Longhorn, drag iron's normally one of the first ones you see. And that's, we all fell in love with drag iron. We kind of started, we've got a handful of drag iron daughters still to this day. And then we kind of branched out. We've started to do some sort of, drag iron and cowboy tough checks cross, bringing in that drag iron tends to have a really slow growth horn. They grow forever. Where cowboy tough checks really kind of comes on really fast at the start. And so combining those, trying to get a longer term horn growth. And that's something that we've seen. We've got some drag iron calves, and I've got a cowboy tough checks granddaughter, and it's very evident with that, and it worked. We're able to get a little bit more longevity and longer horn growth out of those drag iron daughters. And then we kind of just started, we got real heavy with drag iron for a while. We had a bull that was the son of drag iron, BR Mr. Right, and it kind of got to the point where everything of ours was some sort of drag iron daughter or granddaughter. And so then we had to start kind of branching out. We kind of went out to the cowboy tough checks world. And that's done really good. Right now we do have some Hubble's 20 gauge. We have one Hubble's 20 gauge daughter and one embryo that we're hoping to come this spring. So we've kind of gone into some 20 gauge. We've started to get into a couple 50-50s. We have one 50-50 daughter, and we have a Vindicator granddaughter. And so we've kind of broadened our horizon of what we're looking at. We're not trying to stick to one specific bloodline, one specific type of thing, because then it gets, if we end up back where we were, you have one of so much, and you don't really see much diversity. And so we've kind of tried to diversify some. Right now we have a very good bull spirit checks that we've had for a couple years now. That is this Expedite son over a 90-inch Bob Loomis cow BL sassafras. So, that's given us some diversity, bringing in, the Expedite side, something like Cowboy Catch It checks, and then the really strong BL sassafras on the bottom. And so, moving forward, where we're kind of trying to take it is trying to figure out where to build it. And funny enough, my favorite bull is PCC Rimrock, which is, JP Rio son. And at one point we had our first bull we got from the Mullinaxes was a son of PCC Rimrock. But one of the kind of bloodlines and genetics we don't really have in our ranch is some of the famous JP Rio. We don't have much of it. We had a little bit, but when we had the bull, it was a son of PCC Rimrock, Brazos Rocky. We actually only got, I think, one heifer out of 10 cows. So we never really got to have any of that bloodline. And so now it's kind of looking, how can we bring some of that bloodline that has done so well for so long on so many different style of cows into our herd to try to just bring a little bit more diversity into the herd. And I think that's a big thing of wanting to make sure that we have a diverse herd with a lot of different genetic bloodlines out there.
So do you make the primary decisions, Brandon, on genetics? And Candice, do you kind of just, is Tabitha an example of an animal you just liked and, had to have her, or how does that partnership work?
You can answer.
Yeah, I think we've learned through the years to study pedigrees. And so even though the cows, may be pretty, we're looking really closely at the pedigrees and also conformation as well, and conformation throughout those genetic lines. So Brandon and I will sit down with the sale catalog and study it beforehand, kind of pick out our front runners, and then we have, I guess, 3 other partners, your parents and your sister, with us. And so we'll kind of pass a short list over to them so that we can, identify some potential cows at the sales.
And do they take as much interest in the pedigrees and the bloodlines as well?
Yes and no. I think everybody enjoys it. And, I think everybody kind of has a slightly different philosophy in a lot of case. My mom is a sucker for black and white. And she will always, if we're at a sale and there's a black and white, she's going to try to buy it, whether I tell her not to or not. Just because that's what she likes. But, I think they all pay attention to pedigree. It is a family, while Candice and I tend to take more of the lead of looking at the pedigrees and doing a lot of that. The whole family really takes an interest in it and trying to make sure that we pick out cows that, while they're going to improve our program, at the end of the day, stuff that we enjoy too. And I think that's something that's really a big deal, is making sure that, what you have in your pasture is something you enjoy. Things come and go, colors come and go, horn shapes come and go, and they kind of come through cycle. And, if you're always trying to chase it, that's great. But at the same time, if you're always chasing it, are you actually going to enjoy what's out there? And so that's, if you come and visit our ranch and look at our cows, we have a very wide variety of genetics. We have a wide variety of horn shape, and a lot of it's because it's what we liked. That cow fit what we were looking for at that time, and it had this good conformation, and we were looking for a black and white cow, and so that's what we bought. And so that's something that's, I think, helped us. Is it was real easy at first to try to chase and figure out, well, that did well, so we need to go buy that. And then, stepping back, and as you've learned and been in it for a few years, and I think at this point it's now been 7 or 8 years for us, it's what do we enjoy? And ultimately, if we find good, correct cattle that we enjoyed, then we can do something with them. And that allows them to be marketable to somebody else in the future. And I think that's something that we're trying to take as we kind of shrunk our herd some and started to take a step back and look at what we had. And I'm not going to say a rebuild process, because we still have a lot of those cows, but it's being more strategic with what we have, more strategic with what we buy. We are starting, we've never toyed with the AI world or the embryo world for the past 7 years. It just wasn't something we really did much with. And it's something that this past breeding season, we started doing some embryo work. We started to do some AI work to bring in some different genetics that we thought would stack well with what we have without having to own those bulls to get there.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real, and unsolicited advice and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink, we're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Planning a live auction and want to reach more buyers? Hired Hand Live brings the power of the internet to your event, allowing bidders from anywhere to participate in real time. We specialize in integrating online bidding seamlessly with your live auction, ensuring that no one misses out.
Your livestock plus our technical expertise equals one successful auction. Let Hired Hand Live help you expand your reach and maximize your results. Visit hiredhandlive.com to learn more.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Candice Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at candicecattlecompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing canterracattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
Imagine updating your website and managing your animals at the same time without needing tech experience. With Hired Hand software, it's that easy. Our user-friendly platform is designed specifically for breeders, allowing you to keep your site fresh and your animal records up to date in just a few clicks.
Let us simplify your digital chores while you focus on what you do best. Visit hiredhandsoftware.com and see just how easy it can be. Well, I want to go back to something you mentioned a little while back. You mentioned that at the beginning you had buyer's fever, I think you called it. So talk to me just a little bit about your strategy surrounding consignment sales or live sales or internet sales. You've already talked about how it's kind of a family decision, what pedigrees and what bloodlines you bring in, but how else do you approach those sales or future private treaty purchases as well?
You can go back to when we first started. Let's bring it home. Or it was a philosophy that we were new, so we wanted to buy a lot. That way our name was announced when we purchased it. And so that was kind of how it started. Now, when we go to a sale, kind of like Candice said, we're looking at the pedigrees. We're sitting there with the catalogs, a week in advance saying, if we're going to get something, what can it elevate our program? What's actually going to complement what we have? And then it's going to the sale and looking and making sure that what we see in the catalog is what we're really wanting. And so it's a very strategic purchase now. We don't buy nearly as much as we used to. When we go to a sale and if we've got 3 or 4 shortlisted, we're going to spend time at those pens. We're going to see how they're walking. We're going to see, how they're acting, seeing if they've got everything that we're looking for with good confirmation. And if they don't, while it's a great animal, it's not going to fit our program. And so we just won't bid on it. And that's okay. And historically for us, we've bought a lot of our cows at sales and it's been great. We've started to try to foster relationships with other ranches and trying to do some more private treaty stuff, and like I mentioned, when we first started out, we met with Len and Josie and spent time with them, talked with them, and it was great. And then when it came down to having the ranch and running the ranch, it's real easy to get lost in the ranch. And it's hard to find the time to go visit other ranches because if I'm at somebody else's ranch, that I'm not here taking care of my ranch. And so, that's something that we didn't do a real good job of for quite a few years. And we loved our cows and we had a great time and we had people that we knew at sales, but we weren't fostering those relationships and fostering those abilities to do private treaty as much as we'd like. And so that's something that we've started to try to do, visit more ranches, visit ranches that have, bloodlines that we like, or ranches that, have cows that are really high quality, that are doing really well, and fostering those relationships. And maybe out of those, visiting ranches and seeing the different cows, private treaty opportunities might arise. And, being in the position to be able to take advantage of them and not just buying stuff at sales all the time because we just want to raise our hand because it's fun.
So I think a lot of listeners of this podcast are breeders who maybe are in your shoes from 5, 6, 7 years ago. They're a little hesitant to go to the events because they don't really know anyone yet. They're hesitant to reach out and ask a ranch if they can come visit. Specifically as it relates to like networking and being social at the events, what advice would you give those folks who are needing to kind of, take that next step? Just do it. Both Candice and I are very shy people. I'm not a center of attention and neither is she. We don't really like to get out there much. And so, but, I've learned that people want to talk about the cows. And you meet people and you talk and it becomes easier. And so my goal that I've kind of set for myself with every sale I go to is to talk to at least one new person. And in 8 years, I've never met somebody that said, I don't want to talk to you. And I think it's easy to walk in there and you see everybody talking and you see everybody together. And it is a daunting task, especially if you're brand new, if you've got all the cows, it's loud, it's noisy, everybody's kind of looking like they're knowing what they're doing. And you're kind of sitting there going, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know this person, I don't know that person. And I think just walk up and introduce yourself. Hi, I'm such and such. New, one of my first sales, really looking forward to it. And just see, everybody loves to have people come out to the ranch. We love having visitors at the ranch, especially new, getting to show people what we have, but also just talk about the cows, and making friends and doing that. And so I think the biggest advice would just be, just do it. Go to a sale and maybe you don't want to pick, depending on what it is, pick maybe a smaller sale. If you don't want to go to one of the Legacy or one of these other ones that are fantastic sales, but they're a bit overwhelming probably if you're very first time, don't know anybody, go to something like the Texoma sale where there's a lot more kind of that socialization side of it. And, the Eddie Wood sale that we just had this past weekend, stuff like that. They're maybe a little bit more lower key, a little bit, more relaxed, and just spend some time with people, talk with people, ask questions. Do you have any other advice to piggyback off that, Candice? Maybe from a female perspective at all, or no?
I think he did a good job of covering it. I would say the same thing, just just introduce yourself. And everyone we've talked to has been really friendly and really willing to help us out, give their advice and talk about their cows and what's worked for them. And so we've been able to use a lot of the lessons that they taught us to get started and kind of elevate our program throughout the years.
So let's talk a little bit about internet sales. For the sales that you all can't make in person, do you ever bid or participate or watch online?
Watch online a lot. We have bought quite a few animals over the years from the online sales. It's been a great tool for us. Like so many people, you're not able to go to every single sale every single weekend. And so it gives you that ability to be able to purchase cows that you might want. Funny story for me is, or both of us, we were actually getting ready to leave for a trip to go on a hiking trip to Big Bend, but there was a Texoma sale coming up. So we were at Academy Sports, shopping for camping gear, and I bought one of our favorite cows in the camping section of Academy. And I'm sure people in the camping section and also in the checkout line were going, what the heck is this person doing on their phone? Why is there an auctioneer over here? But had the online not been there, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to get that cow. And so I think it opens up a lot of avenues to acquire animals, depending on where they are, especially if you're not able to travel to some of the sales on the East Coast or the West Coast. It allows you to bring in some of those ranches that you might not be able to travel to.
You guys are pretty centrally located compared to some breeders who might be using the internet bidding, but have you ever had any issues with like hauling or, anything after the fact of getting the animals you purchased online to you?
No, we haven't, and we've been in it long enough to where we have haulers that we work with. But it's also great on the online sales is normally somewhere in there on the catalog or in the chat is a list of haulers. That are available to haul, or even on the Facebook groups, here's some of the haulers that are available. And it's, all the ones that are either on the Hired Hand Live auctions, are all top quality haulers, that you can trust your animals with. And so to somebody new that's looking at it, that list of haulers that shows up or is posted in the chat or something, they're top quality haulers that have been doing it a long time. So we've, bought animals and then texted the hauler and say, hey, there's 2 more for you waiting in Texoma, or 2 more for you waiting at the Struthof sale or wherever. And, normally they're like, okay, we'll pick them up and bring them down to you. So we've never had any problems like that.
Have you all consigned any or submitted any animals to our monthly sale since you've been our website customer?
We have not. So, we've only had the Hired Hand site now for a couple months. We had a website before Hired Hand for about 4 or 5 years. I switched over to Hired Hand probably 5 months ago. So we just haven't yet. But we do have, we're starting to make some of our plans for 2025, looking at what we're going to do, looking at the breeding and the pairings that we've got and some of our animals that, have done some wonderful things for us, or the ones that we've raised, but it's, time to maybe keep some of our other ones and let some of these go. And so it's definitely something that we've looked at and we are going to be looking into, coming this spring, to get involved with a couple of our animals over those sales.
Well, as long as we're talking about your Hired Hand website, who's in charge of updating it?
That would be me.
That's you. Okay. What's your favorite feature?
Adding animals.
What do you like about it?
I like the fact that I can get it done in 10 or 15 minutes. Before on my old website, building each page from scratch every time, it was a 1 to 2 hour process to make sure it was done. So it matched all the other pages and everything was done. And we built pedigrees in our old private site. And so I'd have to build each cow's individual pedigree for each page. And it just took time. And so now, we're able to go through and quickly add, I can spend an hour, and add all of our cows that we have in there. We recently just added all of our heifers that we have in there. And it's something that I hadn't put on our old site because I just didn't have the time. Whereas now I could sit on my couch while watching TV, and in an hour I could have my 5 or 6 heifers all on my site and live. So that's something that has given back a lot of time to me to be able to do.
So who's in charge of your social media posting?
It's kind of family, so I do the majority of it. Candice writes a lot of our descriptions for us. She's a much better writer than I am. But I do a lot of our social media. And then my sister does a lot of our reels type stuff, some of our TikTok type stuff. She's much better with that than I am. So she'll help out with that. I'll send her videos or I'll send her pictures, and she'll come up with something, put some music to it for us, and try to get us in with the younger crowd. But it's kind of the three of us. My mom and dad don't do much with social media, and that's perfectly okay.
Do you see a good return on your investment of time spent on social media? Have you gotten inquiries from it?
Yes, so Facebook does really well for us. The Longhorn groups on Facebook, that's where the vast majority is. Our TikTok and Instagram, they get views. They're fun. We've never gotten any leads off of TikTok or Instagram, but they're more just fun. Everybody loves a fun TikTok about a cow, and I think it's a good platform to be on, just to have a presence, showing the Longhorns, exposing them to the world. Not trying to debunk some of the myths of Longhorns is good with social media too. Some people think that Longhorns are mean, and they're not. And so having those TikToks out there showing you putting a Christmas hat on your cow while sitting on her in a Christmas suit, kind of, to help show that they are great animals. They have a benefit. They're not mean. And, they have a place amongst the cattle world.
So how many times a week do you think you spend looking at Longhorn websites?
I think it depends. I'll be honest. I don't probably spend as much time as I should. If there's a sale coming up, or if we're looking for a bull, or we're looking to sell our stuff, I spend a whole lot more time on it, every night. If we're kind of in a period of time where we're not really doing a whole lot of looking, we're not doing a lot, I'll search around on Facebook or Instagram, and if someone puts their link to a cow that I like, I'll click on it and kind of scroll around and look at the progeny and all of that. But, it's kind of cyclical. If there's a lot going on where we're actively looking to add or actively looking to sell, I'm much more active on the sites. And if we're not, then I just kind of enjoy our cows and enjoy our time.
Do you have a favorite site that you kind of just find yourself, you have to go check and see if they've added anything new if you haven't been on there in a couple weeks or a couple months?
I think there's a couple sites that way. I think one of my favorite kind of hired hand sites is the Cold Copper site. I don't know why. I just like the color scheme. I like the way it's laid out, and it's always fun to look at their animals. I think out of all the hired hand sites that I spend time on, it's Arrowhead, Craig Perez's site. And I think it's just because it's an easy site to play around on and to get lost in sometimes, and just start going down rabbit holes of researching, well, if I put this cow with this cow, what progeny has come out of that combination? Well, what cows are in the 80 group? What cows are in the 90 group? What cows in the 100 group? And I think, I spend a lot of time on Arrowhead just kind of getting lost down rabbit holes. And before I know it, I've been there for a couple hours just searching and playing and clicking around. But in terms of just like an actual ranch's site, the Cold Copper one's always one that I've enjoyed looking at, seeing what animals they have, but also just I enjoy the layout of it.
What about you, Candice? Do you have a favorite, or do you leave the research more up to Brandon online?
I would say mine is pretty much the same as him. We kind of go through everything together. And so, we'll say, oh, come look at this on this site. And then, just start clicking through the pedigrees. And it's pretty amazing what you can find looking back through all of that information.
Well, let's look like 5 years into the future. What does your ranch and your breeding program look like then?
5 years into the future, I hope 5 years from now we've taken a step forward from where we are. We're really happy with where we are, but we're trying to make some moves, trying to do some different bulls, like I said, through AI and through embryo work, to bring some different genetics in that maybe a little bit more higher power, maybe bring a little bit more horn to our program, that we don't currently have. And so, hopefully in 5 years we're seeing those rewards. Hopefully we're putting some stuff into some sales, actual live auctions. It's not something we've done a whole lot of. In 7 or 8 years, we've only consigned animals to 2 or 3 sales. It's just not it's not something that's been a big part of our program. We've done very well with private treaty over these years. But I'd love to get a sale into a Hudson cow, into Hudson Valentine or something like that, and have it do well. And that's kind of a 5-year goal is to look at our program where we are today, and then in 5 years, hopefully it's better than where we were right now. And I think that's the goal of everybody in Longhorns and registered cattle world, is to see where you are and then figure out how to go one step above and always improving that breed. And so hopefully what we're doing today in these years and bull selection and everything in 5 years from now is taking us one step ahead, to where we have animals we can put in some of these high quality sales, and have a good representation of our ranch.
We'll have to pull this clip out of the archives in 5 years when you have a sale topper, and you can look back on how far you've come.
That'd be great if we had a sale topper. I'd be happy as a lark.
Well, one thing I always like to do, especially when couples are online, is some rapid fire questions. Are you guys up for those?
Yes.
All right. So you each can answer, because a lot of times they're not the same. So what do you prefer, morning coffee or evening sunsets on the ranch?
I'm a coffee person, so one of my favorite things at the ranch is to go out and watch the sunrise with a cup of coffee.
I'm a sunset person. I love the sunset.
What would be your favorite workday song or playlist in terms of when you're at the ranch working?
Mine's typically like red dirt country, or local country.
I like to turn the radio to the Waco station called The Bear.
What's one farm task that a lot of people hate that you secretly enjoy?
Mine secretly enjoy building pipe fence.
Wow. I don't think we've ever got that one before. That might be a first.
It is. I hate it when I'm doing it, but I enjoy it when it's done.
I like dragging pastures.
What about, are you boots or sneakers for everyday ranch chores?
Boots.
Would you rather drive a farm truck or an ATV?
Side by side.
Yeah.
What's one thing you always carry in your pocket when you're walking around the ranch?
Pocket knife.
Yeah, pocket knife.
What's one thing you'd add to your ranch if money were no object?
More equipment and gadgets for said equipment.
I was going to say the gadgets if you said more equipment.
Any specific gadgets or just all the gadgets?
All the gadgets.
If you can attach it, that's what we want.
Would you consider that you all are in your dream ranch location, or would it be somewhere else?
I think we'd consider this the dream location.
Yeah.
What about your favorite farm, ranch, movie, or TV show?
Clarkson's Farm.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you have a favorite livestock influencer or account that you like to follow?
A favorite? No. I follow a bunch. Bar 7 Ranch. I follow R.A. Brown. I don't have a favorite per se, but kind of follow a couple of them here and there.
All right, one more here. This one is where couples usually differ, so we'll see how you guys fare among the pack. Ideal herd size?
30.
Yeah, I'd say 30. We've had more, and it's just 30 is the perfect number because that's what the land can support without overgrazing the pastures and without having to feed and supplement their food a lot.
Well, I feel like we covered a lot of information today. Is there anything that I haven't asked you all that you really want to make sure our listeners know about you or about the breed overall?
Oh, I think you've covered everything, and I think the biggest, thing for other listeners, especially people starting out, is just get out there and do it, talk to people, visit a ton of ranches, and everybody in the breed is wonderful. They all want to talk to you about the cows and what's worked and what hasn't worked and make those friends. So many of us are friends from the sales and from this breed, and so I think get out there, meet people, talk to people, and don't be scared to come up. Don't be scared to ask. Come visit our ranch or anybody else's ranch. I'd love to have people out, and I think most everybody else would feel the same way.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time out of your day to join me. I really appreciate it.
No, we really appreciate this opportunity, and we're really excited.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us on From the Pasture with Hired Hand. We hope you enjoyed this visit to Windmill Ridge Ranch and learned something new about the world of Texas Longhorns. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. You can always explore more stories from the pasture by visiting our website or following us on social media. Until next time, remember to appreciate the pastures you roam and the traditions that make them special.